I give the floor to Barry, who will introduce Oonagh to us.
Good, thank you very, very much, Eleanor. Good afternoon, everybody. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Oonagh personally, but we've had a chance to chat over the Zoom while waiting for you all to come online. She's a member of the steering committee of the Lifelong Learning Platform, which is one of our key topics today, which has been there for the last 3 years. And she's speaking to us today from Quebec in Canada, which she's visiting, because she used to be on the staff of the McGill School of Social Work at McGill University and was involved in research into Indigenous communities in Quebec. She's also worked for local government in the United Kingdom and also in Scotland, and was until recently the chief executive of Volunteering Matters, which is a UK national charity providing volunteering opportunities to people of all ages. We're going to be mainly a group of language teachers and trainers, and we're coming actually as part of and members of what is a much broader educational organization. And I'm absolutely delighted, Oonagh, that you're able to talk to us today, and really looking forward to learning about the operation and how it affects us. So over to you.
Thanks very much, Barry. Hello, everyone. I should also say that I did start my career as a language teacher and have kind of kept an interest in language teaching and learning for many years now. And I was just telling Barry that since I retired, my main occupation at the moment is learning Scottish Gaelic, and I'm in my second year of a course with Salmorostig, which is part of the University of the Highlands and Islands, and it's the main Gaelic teaching organisation in Scotland. And if any of you have ever tried to learn Scottish Gaelic, or Irish for that matter, it is a real challenge. It's certainly the hardest intellectual exercise I've ever undertaken. Anyway, I'm here today to talk to you about the Lifelong Learning Platform. I've got quite a long list of slides, so I will try not to read out the slides because there's nothing more annoying than that, and try and just give you a bit of a feel for what the organisation does and how it operates out of Brussels, obviously. And then I've got a final half a dozen or so slides on Erasmus+, because I think for you probably the most interesting thing is how can you get involved with some of the things the Lifelong Learning Platform can support you in, and Erasmus Plus and being involved in some of these programs and projects is one of these ways. So there's some statistics to start off with. You can see the foundation of the platform, and Eleanor was just telling us that she was a founding member of the Lifelong Learning Platform when she was working in Brussels. It's a network of networks, so there are 41 member networks in the platform, and as you can see, a large number of education and training institutions that take part in it. So I'm part of the Lifelong Learning Platform as president of Volunt Europe, and Volunt Europe is a network of organisations that provide opportunities for people to volunteer, just as the title says. So we're very, very active in the Lifelong Learning Platform, largely because we believe that volunteering is a form of learning for anyone of any age. And this was something that I pushed very hard when I was Chief Executive of Volunteering Matters, because some of the best programmes that we ran in Volunteering Matters and are run in other organisations in the UK are designed to help young people who are furthest from the labour market enter the labour market through opportunities to volunteer as part of their learning in terms of gaining skills and being able to present themselves for employment. So that's just a few stats. There's all the kinds of people that are part of the Lifelong. You can join it as any of these. Very active, in fact, I'll just pick one out. Very active, in fact, in the Lifelong Learning Platform is the European Parents Association, who, as you might imagine, take to do with all aspects of learning and education for children at school and university, or young people at university. So these are the kind of people who are part of who are stakeholders in the platform. Three overarching goals, I won't read them out to you, but we are a civil society organisation, so a huge focus of the platform is being inclusive and democratic. And but the platform itself is part of many other organisations that operate out of Brussels, organisations like the Social Platform, the European Civic Forum, Civil Society Europe, all of these. So there's a wider focus, if you like, which is around promoting democracy and inclusiveness, as well as these other overarching goals, which are about quality education and relevance of education to modern society. And we'll probably touch on some of these in later slides. I hope I'm not speaking too quickly. Scottish people have a real tendency to speak very quickly, so please somebody stop me and ask me to slow down if it's too fast. But given you're all language teachers, I'm sure you're not having any problem even with a Scottish accent. So again, these are the sectors that the Lifelong Learning Platform operates in. I mean, volunteering isn't in there, but it's if you like, it's included in certainly everything from schools forward. These are the kinds of cross-cutting themes and topics that we operate, that we work in, and volunteering obviously comes in there. But these are, I suppose, what we've called their cross-cutting topics. So any projects or programs or advocacy that we do, we tend to not focus on one of these, but have them as topics that go across all the work that the platform does. So I'll just give you a second. I'm not going to read out the bullet points, but it's a fairly wide and varied group of cross-cutting topics. What do we do? Well, here are all the kinds of things that we do. Obviously, European funding projects generally through Erasmus+. We consult on most things that come out of the Commission that have to do with education and learning. We have members' consultations on these. We, up until this year, have run an LLA awards scheme. I think we're putting that on hold for a couple of years. Out of the staff, from the staff of the platform, there's many policy statements, position papers, and so on. We have an interest group in the Parliament. We have an Erasmus Plus coalition, which I'll talk about a bit later. Various working groups tend to be kind of task and finish groups, and obviously partnerships on all sorts of other aspects of civil society with other organisations. So Brikena, who's the Secretary General of the Lifelong Learning Platform, is the co-chair of the Economic and Social Committee's civil society group, for example. So it's more than just lifelong learning, if you like. It's being part of civil society as it operates out of Brussels, and making sure that we're constantly in touch with the Commission, with Parliament, and with the other institutions. We've again, up until this year, and had themes throughout the year, which lead to discussion at the annual conference, position papers, and the LLL week, which is usually at the beginning of December. And if you look at last year's, we decided to talk about evaluation and its impact on learners' well-being. And I think some of that came out of the pandemic and the huge amount of debate that I'm sure you've all been aware of around how to do evaluation situations where young people young people weren't in school and in university in person, but were having to do everything across the internet. So we focused on that last year. So it comes through focus groups, as I said, position papers, and the LLL week. You can, on the LLL website, you'll find all the details of all these pieces of paper, if you like, which are all online if you want to read more about how the thematic years have worked last year and in the past. And I think actually we're still debating the topic for this year, even although we're now in April, because we're changing slightly, because of the pandemic and the fact that we've not been able to meet really in person as a board, or in fact as a General Assembly. We're rethinking some of the activities that the platform does in terms of the impact of the pandemic. So here's some stats in terms of social media, Twitter, and so on. So we get quite a good traffic on all our social media. Perhaps, you know, not as many as Hollywood stars get, but it's a bit of a niche. So there are some numbers for you. This is the kinds of organisations that are part of the Lifelong Learning Platform. Some of them will be very familiar to some of you, I'm quite sure. So a really, really wide range of organisations that form the membership. I won't pick any of them out. I actually volunteer a bit. I don't know, it is volunteer a bit. So the organisation that I'm the president of is that one on the very bottom line. Volunteer, that's our logo next to the Scouts, a much bigger logo than us, I can see. So I said I would talk perhaps a bit about Erasmus Plus, because I think this is probably the programme that's of most interest to you as an organisation, but perhaps to some of you as individuals as well. So if you don't know about Erasmus Plus, I'm presuming that most of you are familiar with it. It's a programme, a European Commission programme that supports the development of people of all ages, education, youth and sport. And the interesting thing about it is Europe and beyond. So there are a number of activities that are available to countries outside of the European Union, which is actually very good news for Volunteering Matters, because as a UK national charity, we were very, very active in the Erasmus Plus programme, and had at any one time we could have had 6 projects ongoing, usually involving volunteers of different age groups, working with their both partners across Europe. So even after Brexit, we're able to, Volunteering Matters, if it wishes to, and other UK charities are able to participate in the Erasmus Plus programme. The 3 key actions you can see there are mobility, cooperation, policy development. And it has a very kind of, well, strange for me, operating mode or implementation mode. You don't deal directly with the European Commission through the Erasmus Plus programme. You have to go through what are called national agencies and EAC. So in every country there's a national agency, as I'm sure you're aware, and your applications and indeed the project, the management of your project works through that national agency. Whether it's a good model or not, I know what I think, but I'm not going to impose my views on you. And here are the kind of cross-cutting priorities. So inclusion and diversity, digital transformation, green, and actually I can't see that top one there. Participation in democratic life. So in your application for any of these Erasmus Plus projects, that obviously you have to focus on one or more of these particular priorities. So I'm thinking of some of the projects that we've been involved in the past, or Volunteering Matters has been involved in. I'll just pick one to tell you about, which I think is quite an interesting one. It was around integrating recent migrants into the world of work through volunteering, with a particular focus on arts and culture. So the team of people that actually worked out of the Ipswich office in the UK, the team of people managing the project from our side would seek volunteering opportunities with local museums, art galleries, libraries, other cultural facilities, theatres, community arts, that kind of thing, for recent migrants to the area. And you probably, well, you may be aware that the east of England took in quite a number of not migrants really, but people coming from other European countries very early on, from Romania and Poland and so on. And many of the women that came to live in the UK would find it very difficult to get employment. So as them, as well as Afghans, Syrians, and so on, it did tend to be quite a female focus on this project. But anyway, through these opportunities to volunteer for a number of days in these arts and culture organisations and develop a project themselves with the organisation that were volunteering, they gained a whole set of skills, as well as obviously improving their English, a whole set of skills that they could then use if they were interested in working in that area. And the way the Erasmus projects work, as I'm sure you're well aware, there are always a series of transnational meetings, and then usually a conference or a multiplying event where all of the people involved in the different countries are able to come together in one of the countries to exchange ideas and so on. So that's just one example. I could give you a million examples of Erasmus Plus projects, and you've probably got some of your own. But you can see from what I've just described that that would have covered quite a number of the things that are on this slide. So it's accessible and inclusive for people with fewer opportunities, and certainly migrants coming to the UK usually fall into that category. But it's also supporting active citizenship, lifelong learning, and so on. I don't know that it had any particular green or digital transformation aspects to it, but it certainly had lots of stuff around inclusion and diversity and participation in democratic life. So that's just one example from my own experience of the programme. There's another one coming up here. Yep. So here's the structure of it. It's divided up into these key actions. I'm just going to try and get rid of this a sec. Key actions. So the learning mobility of individuals, cooperation, support to policy and development, and then these Jean Monnet actions, which actually I have to admit I've never come across in the past, but we've certainly been involved in key actions 1 and 2. And when I was chief exec of Volunteering Matters, I had a particular obsession with student mobility and the mobility of young people with fewer opportunities, because the Erasmus programme, which I'm sure you're all very well aware of, the programme that allows university students to spend a semester or more in another European country, is a wonderful programme, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. But it does focus on young people who have already quite a level of privilege, in the sense that they're at university, and that kind of says it all. And we always felt that young people who have fewer opportunities, or who are further from the labour market, or just generally not doing terribly well in education or training, just didn't get that opportunity to move around Europe in the same way as their peers on the Erasmus programme. So many of our projects in Volunteering Matters, and indeed in Volunt Europe, because we're now involved in Erasmus through Volunt Europe, many of the programmes focused on helping young people through Key Action 1 to have opportunities to move around to another European country, to meet their peers in that country, to learn a bit of the language, and to see that there was a possibility of doing more than being stuck in their own town or their own village in the UK. And most of these programs were really, really successful. Just a little anecdote, we used to work very closely with a French organisation called Itinéraire International, and they actually had a much more focused programme for young people with fewer opportunities, where they actually gave them almost about a month's pre-placement training and preparation, and then a month's debrief when they came back from the placement. And really, I think the Key Action 1 does recognise this, that if you're going to work with these young people, then you really need to give them as much preparation as you possibly can for this kind of experience. So that's Key Action 1. Staff mobility is obviously in there as well. And we've done lots on Key Action 2, partnerships for cooperation for innovation and excellence. And I know the Lifelong Learning Platform has also been involved in both, well, more on Key Action 2 projects. So that's the structure as it stands at the moment. And how you take part in it? Well, you can obviously apply as an individual, but it usually needs to be through an organisation. But organisations, really, it's open, as it says here, to anybody that's active in the field, and the application process is fairly involved. But I think once you've done one project application, you're pretty much in the zone of knowing how to apply. And it's either, as it says here, a grant for a project, or more normally a call for proposals that comes out usually 2 or 3 times a year on these key actions. If you're in the know here, you'll know that there's usually that you can apply across the year for different programs. So that's Erasmus Plus. And here's how the LLLP has been involved. So I'll read it out to you. You can see there that it's had the key action 3 ones, the ones that are more about policy development or policy consultation, but also topics that are connected with the work on transversal topics, and cooperation within the network. And there's some of the organisations that have taken part. And using the results of projects for advocacy and so on. And I can think of one that I was involved in with LLLP, and that was around validation of learning, validation of informal learning, where a group of organisations, including Volunteer and Volunteering Matters, got involved in trying to work out how you could best evaluate the learning that people got from volunteering. So how do you give them not qualifications exactly, but how do you demonstrate to employers or educational institutions or training centres that through your volunteering you've gained a set of skills? And that was quite a successful programme. And again, I'm sure the details of these programmes can be found on the LLLP website in terms of what they achieved in the end. There's many slide decks about the projects and their outcomes from them. I think, oh, here we are. This is the last slide. So monitoring and advocacy, I said yes, I would mention the coalition of stakeholders. So this is a coalition with the European Youth Forum that shares the views, not just the multi-annual financial framework, but of programmes like Erasmus Plus, and feeds that back to the Commission. And we have the Erasmus Plus implementation survey, trying to improve the Erasmus Plus programme from the point of view of grassroots organisations that take part. And it just generally trying to make the programme more transparent and more accessible to all organisations. And also, and then this is why I made the comment about the national agencies, trying to make sure that national agencies across the European Union are more or less doing the same thing with the applicants from their countries. And of course, it's a kind of, it's not a particularly level playing field, because there's more or less money in each of the countries. So there are more or fewer programmes funded in different countries, which makes it quite important if you're working with a set of partners that you decide who's going to make the application to which national agency. So I think I'm pretty sure that's my last slide. Yes, it is. So I'll stop sharing, Barry.
Okay, well, thank you. That's perfect. And if you'd like to stop sharing your screen, and we're back in full vision. I'm going to just make one announcement. Oonagh has kindly agreed that she'll make her slides available to us, so that if you want to read the slides in more detail, they will be on the website, obviously, as well as the session this afternoon. So that's the first thing to say. The second thing is, we'd now like to invite questions for a few minutes, if we may, from you. And I've got a couple, if I may, to kick off. And so I'll use my position as co-host to start on that one, Oonagh, if I may. And thank you, by the way, for a really illuminating and helpful talk. We've seen some of the ways forward and in which we think we can cooperate, and that could be really, really valuable. Headlines in the newspapers and all across the media are saying there are now 5 million Ukraine refugees, mainly heading westward into Europe, into Western Europe. And obviously, without wishing in any way to ignore the position of refugees who have come from Sudan, from Afghanistan and other countries south of the Mediterranean, what can LLLP and Erasmus Plus do to help develop and continue the education programs of these refugees, which are, after all, being accepted in huge numbers by European countries?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, we've been asking different members of the platform to tell us about their experiences of receiving refugees or adapting their programs to refugees. And it's quite interesting. And we had a meeting of our volunteer board just last week, in fact, and we heard from some of our members in Poland and in the Baltic country, the Balkans especially, how they were responding to the refugees. I mean, I think as a network based in Brussels, there's little really that LLLP can do on the ground in terms of in terms of the refugees, if I'm honest, but it can keep in touch with its members. And you would hope that through Erasmus Plus, the Commission would think about having a specific programme that would focus on the Ukrainian refugees and give some financial help to them being able to continue their education and training or whatever they were doing back in Ukraine. I'm not sure that will, the Commission doesn't move terribly fast, as you know. Yes. So I'm not sure that there'll be anything immediately, but we, I think, should be advocating for something like that, that says, well, let's produce some cash that can be distributed and to LLP members obviously would be good. But we were talking on our board meeting about how as a network we could join up the different people who were with refugees and kind of get some good practice out there and some experience. And I think that's something that LLP could also do. Good.
I'd like to see that happen. I think it's really, really important. And if I may, there's one very quick thing that I'll add, which is ICC Languages, as you probably know, has a major language teacher training program, which has run for years and years and years, called Eurolta. And they have just started up a training for teachers of refugees.
Okay.
And this is not an ELT, English language teaching program. This is a program for language teachers in general who want to teach refugees. And if there are refugees themselves who are teachers and want to join this program, there will be no charge for them.
Right.
Now, to what extent? And I'm not, if you like, involved in the admin. Eleanor knows all about it, of the Eurolta program, although I have offered programs to them. But the key thing for me is how could an organization like Eurolta, which is up and running, which is an ICC languages organization, how can that benefit from LLLP activities and indeed from Erasmus Plus?
Well, I mean, obviously I can feed this back to LLLP and see if the staff think there's anything that we could contribute in terms of exposure. I mean, quite honestly, how could Erasmus Plus help? You could get involved in a project. I mean, that's for sure. We've
done this before, and I suppose one of my questions, ICC language is not a problem, as you know, because they're German-based. But apologize for this in advance, but you probably had this from other sources. As a British member of ICC languages and one who has been not involved, forced to accept the Brexit situation here, do you feel that the British position, if they wanted to apply for Erasmus grants through universities, etc., would be on exactly the same basis as a university in Germany or France, or do you feel no, we've had it?
I don't think we've had it exactly, but I think it's more difficult. certainly we felt. So I'll say something that's perhaps a bit politically incorrect as well. We, as Volunteer Europe, we were based in the UK. We were part of Volunteering Matters, in fact. And at the last round of operating grants, we didn't get our operating grant. We had it for something like 10 years.
Yeah.
And we could only think that, because the only organisations that didn't get operating grants were UK-based organisations.
So they're not. Understandably, they're not terribly sympathetic in some respects. But so, yes, one can see the history. Yes.
Yeah. So our kind of reaction to that was we moved Volunteer Europe to and based it in Belgium and made it in. Now that it's a complicated process, and it means that you can't apply for 3 years because you have to have 3 years of accounts. But we're now at the point where we have 3 years of accounts, so we've applied this year. So we'll see if that changes things. But I wouldn't allow that to put UK organisations off applying, because I think it's worth still.
I think so. Yeah,
you should still be able to apply for Erasmus Plus projects, for example.
Yes, we ran a project through Westminster University years and years ago, before 2010, on diversity in the workplace, and it was really, really successful. And that was but Westminster was involved as one of the key partners.
Yeah, but I'm wondering if Eurolta, as part of ICC, could. But I mean, I'll explore this with the staff at LLLP.
I think so, and then liaise with Eleanor, and I think that could work very, very successfully.
Maybe that there are other organisations around Europe that could join up to make a programme that would be specifically.
And other universities, indeed, yeah. Okay, well, those were my 3 questions. Thank you for letting me hog the stage for a few minutes. Would anybody else like to ask Oonagh anything about Erasmus or about LLLP, or indeed any other aspects of her immensely varied career and work? Okay, I'm looking at the shared screen. Sorry, not shared screen. That's not what we need at the moment, especially not mine. I'm looking at the chat, and we've got some very nice comments from Hara and from Elmira and Maite. So your talk was very, very much appreciated. And let's see, Mohammed Syed Ahmed has a question. Mohammed, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask about the Erasmus plan or the Erasmus program for the students in North Cyprus, especially because we always face this issue when we're trying to send students abroad, that they cannot actually join the program. They would have to either join it from the Republic of Cyprus itself or from the Republic of Turkey. So I just wanted to ask if there's any plans in the near future to kind of integrate the program for North Cyprus, and the same thing also for LLP, because we cannot join such organizations through North Cyprus.
It's a good question. To be honest, in terms of Erasmus Plus, I don't know, so I'm not going to waffle and give you a nonsense answer. But and for LLP, well, I can go back again to the staff and the board and ask that question. But I'm not going to just waffle on because I don't know the answer.
And what about LLP?
I haven't. Well, again, I don't know. I wasn't aware that you couldn't join, because I mean, we're not just a European organisation; we're an international organisation. And I know my own volunteering organisation, Volunteer Europe, we do accept members from across the globe. We don't restrict it to Europe. I mean, obviously, if you're not in the European Union, then and you're not one of the countries that they recognise in terms of Erasmus Plus, then it's difficult. And I haven't heard of any plans to extend the programme. Let me go back to LLP in terms of membership of the network.
I think it is really worth exploring. I think Mohammed's position is absolutely right, because in North Cyprus, as he said, you either have to go through Turkey, and it does pose problems. And I think it's something that's very, very important. If LLP is going to be, and I'm going to make a slightly controversial point here because I don't think it's true. If LLP comes across as an elitist organization, when, as I know you'd agree, one of its key functions has got to be to help the disadvantaged who wish to get ahead in education and motivated for jobs, etc.
Absolutely. Let me take that back.
Okay, anybody else would like to ask a question at this stage? One or two more people have said how much they enjoyed the presentation. Thank you very much. May well be that we're going to get you away before midday. My goodness, that would be an achievement. Okay, not sure if Papa Mbala Ndong has something you'd like to add there. Don't want to bring you in unnecessarily, but anybody else who'd like to have something? Otherwise, I think what I'll do, Oonagh, is say thank you very much on my part and hand the meeting back to Eleanor.
Can I just ask if anybody who's out there has had experience of Erasmus Plus and what their experience has been, and if there's anything LLLP can
very good point
do to improve that experience, because we do have we have the coalition that I mentioned. We're in constant contact with the Commission, and I know that we're also in contact with other European networks who feed back to the Commission the grassroots experience of Erasmus Plus.
Okay, so the invitation is there either now or if you want to get in touch with Oonagh personally, with your experience of working with Erasmus Plus, I think it could be a really valuable thing. Funnily enough, I do remember quite well at the university I was working at, we actually had the Italian who was responsible for developing Erasmus Plus working in our university. It's quite amusing, that. Yeah. Okay, anything from anybody? Let's one more thing come up in the chat. Let's see where we are. Yes, Maike van Ooyen from the All In Foundation has said she has no experience yet, but hope to apply for a grant in the near future. So it may well be, Maike, that there's a good opportunity for you to be in contact with Oonagh as a way into looking at Erasmus Plus and also with LLLP. Okay.
And also, if any of you are through your work are working with volunteers or providing volunteering opportunities, please, I'm going to unashamedly plug my own network. Have a look at our website and see if it's something that you'd be interested in getting involved in as a member. It's very inexpensive to join.
Good, that's a thought. Make sure if we have that the URL for that, Oonagh, and then we'll make sure that goes on the web.
Okay, brilliant.
Okay, all right. Anybody else got anything they'd like to add or put in? Speak now, as they say in English, or forever hold your peace. Okay, all right. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Oonagh. Let me pass you back to Eleanor. Where is she?
I'm here. I'm here. Thank you very much, Oonagh, for the presentation. I would like to add that the Lifelong Learning Platform is really a great opportunity of, say, cross-sectoral working.
Yep.
You don't have to look around in your country or in neighboring countries if you find an association that could cooperate with you for instance, for an Erasmus Plus project. Go to the Lifelong Learning Platform and look around. You have all educational and learning sectors represented, which is a unique opportunity, I'd say. As to the ICC, I can say that the ICC is the only member in the LLP which deals only with languages. So within the LLLP, we are the experts for language learning and teaching. And whoever wants to do something with languages, don't forget that cultural issues are closely related to languages, to understanding languages, to learning another language. As Nelson Mandela said, if you speak to some, I don't know the wording, but more or less, if you speak to someone in a language that the two of you understand, it will go to his head. If you speak the other one's language, it will go to his heart.
Oh, yes.
And I think that's really a lovely word sentence. I would also like to stress what Oonagh said at one moment, that is the Lifelong Learning Week. And I think we should try to promote it again and again. Education and learning is so important for everybody, and so important to promote your own country, to promote your cultural issues, etc. And the Lifelong Learning Week could help to promote education and learning. And I think we shouldn't forget that. Oonagh, could you tell us when the Lifelong Learning Week will take place this year? Is it December again?
Yeah, it should be December. It's usually the first week in December. I mean, I would urge everyone to take a look at the LLLP website, because there's details of all the upcoming events on that. And the next thing that's happening is the Learning Lab in Nice at the end of May as part of the French presidency. But everything is, I mean, all the events are on the website.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember the origin of the Lifelong Learning Week, which originally was Adult Learners Week, coming from the UK. It was then Alan Tuckett, who was director of then NIAS, National Institute for Adult Continuing Education, which no longer exists. It's melted with some other organization, and they wanted to get more money from the government. And the minister said, it's no use because people wouldn't come. Adult learning, why? What on earth is it good for? And then Alan said, if I show you that adults are coming to learn during 1 week, day and night, would we then get money? And the minister said, oh yeah, of course, because he was convinced it will not happen. And they succeeded in having classes a whole week, day and night, 24 hours, without break. I mean, not the same teachers, of course. And the lessons were full. So there were plenty of people, and the minister then gave in and said, yeah, you have convinced me. I think that was a good example of how important education and learning is.
Yeah, the Lifelong Learning Week is brilliant when it's able to take place in person and people come to Brussels, and there's like a week of workshops and conferences and exchange of good practice, experience, etc. But obviously we haven't been able to do that for the last couple of years. So fingers crossed that this year it'll all take place in person with the usual kind of exciting topics to discuss.
Is there a possibility of watching it or participating online?
I mean, if it's well, I imagine that there'll be hybrid. If it takes place in person, then there'll be hybrid events. But the problem really, I think, is that usually the Lifelong Learning Week was in all different venues in Brussels. You know, so you could have like little seminar groups in different organisations' premises, and it's very difficult, as you know, to get the Zoom technology to work in these kind of circumstances. So with any luck this year, it will be fully in person. But I think that the GA, for example, is going to be hybrid at the middle of June. But it's just not the same as having that sort of personal interaction that we used to have.
Yeah, yeah. Is one more question from my side? Is there a possibility of people, maybe somebody who's present now wants to get in touch with the platform? If he or she is in Brussels, is there a possibility of meeting somebody?
Yeah. I mean, again, the website gives you the address and everything, but it's right in the heart of the European sort of quarter, so it's very easy to find. I think I would just get in touch in advance with one of the members of staff, and if somebody's going to be there, then they certainly can meet.
Yeah, thank you. And when I was working in Brussels, we always had places for internships. Is there
I don't believe they have an intern at the moment, and it's probably a question of finance, Eleanor. But I think we have had them in the past, though.
But we could ask.
Yeah, you could ask, of course, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions?
No, nothing in the chat, and I think we're pretty clear, actually.
Okay. So could you already announce the next webinar in May, Barry?
I will. I just quickly have to go online and just double check that I'm there for it. Here we go, and the next one in May coming up is going to be, well, there's two actually. First of all, we have our very first seminar in Spanish, which is on May the 3rd. And that's from Claudia García-Schubech, who's currently in Germany. And she's talking about El Círculo del Aprendizaje, the learning circle. So that's going to be an interesting one to see. And then back in English, we have a presentation from Professor David Little, who is a fellow of Trinity College Dublin, where he taught. And this is One School, 50 Languages, Plurilingual Education in an Irish Primary School. And this is going to be a massively good lesson for us, because actually he is a brilliant speaker, works with ECML, and actually will have great lessons from Ireland in this case. And that is on May the 26th from 5 to 6 p.m. Central European Time. So that's what's coming up in May. Claudia Schubech on the 3rd and Professor David Little on the 26th.
Thank you very much. So there are no more questions?
Not that I can see, and I've got the answers brilliantly to my questions. So the question is, it's onwards and upwards, I think, seeing what we can do. And have a, I don't know when you're going back to France, but have a safe trip.
Oh, we're not until the middle of May.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you very much again, and have a good time in Quebec.
Thank you very much. Share bear, as we say.
There we go. A bit of Gaelic just to keep us going.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Well,
Bye-bye then.
thank you to all of you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.